All right. Good afternoon, everybody. All right, so I'm going to be starting a new PowerPoint on genetics, and we're going to start talking about Mendelian genetics. All right, so I'm going to present my screen. Awesome. All right, so who is Mendel, or who is Gregor Mendel? All right, just to show you a quick picture of him, and yes, I'm using Wikipedia just for this. So Gregor Mendel, he's considered the father of genetics. Long story short, he was a monk, and he did a lot of tests with pea plants and pretty much bred a bunch of different physically different pea plants, different colored flowers, and different types of peas being produced as far as wrinkled and round and colors of the peas themselves. And essentially, he is the first person to document hereditary or traits being passed down from parent to offspring. All right, so I will be presenting this. All right, so Mendelian genetics. Right. One thing to say too: don't really pay attention to the chapter numbers. We don't go in order. But anyways, all right. So Mendel published his work with the peas in 1870. All right, or in the 1870s. All right. He didn't know what he was really figuring out, but he really did pioneer the first concepts of heredity or in genetics. And so he did note different phenotypes in the color of flowers and such being produced, and the different textures and look of the peas themselves. So he was noting a lot of phenotypes in his work, but that is, as we know, derived from genetic information in the form of DNA. So that's there. And then meiosis, right? So we learned in cellular division, meiosis is the production of our sex cells, so egg and sperm for humans, male and female respectively. But meiosis is the overall for any type of organism. It is the generation of their sex or reproductive gametes, right? So he did a couple different vocab things, and so we call Mendel's genetic factors alleles. And so this is when we start getting into vocab like dominant and recessive. And so you'll have a dominant allele, for example, that's brown hair is dominant versus blonde hair would be recessive. So brown and blonde hair respectively would be two different alleles. So there's that, and the combination of those alleles or the phenotype that you get. Yep, so you get two alleles per trait, and so one from mom, one from dad. What they pass down and in combination is what you have as a phenotype, and that is derived from your genotype or your genetic information. All right, so the ability to roll one's tongue is a dominant trait, so that could be considered a capital letter. They're always going to be defined as capital letters. And not being able to roll your tongue would be a recessive trait. So and both parents would have to pass that recessive trait for that trait to develop. So very few of you will not be able to roll their tongue, and the majority of you will be able to roll your tongue like this. All right. That's fine. All right. So someone who can roll their tongue is either homozygous dominant, so that's both of the capital R's, or heterozygous, which means one dominant, one recessive, one capital R, one lowercase r. If they're heterozygous and only one dominant allele is present, the dominant trait or dominant phenotype will always appear, right? But a person who cannot roll their tongue will always have homozygous recessive or little r, right? All right, so Mendelian genetics is its own category, right? And just to put that into a little bit more clarity, it's the very basic genetics. So this is Punnett squares, dominant and recessive, and we're going to get into some things called like codominance and incomplete dominance as well. All right, so reading through these bullet points, today it is clear that there are a variety of ways that traits can be inherited. And Mendel was lucky that he studied traits that were clearly dominant or recessive. And so that's black and white, clearly dominant or clearly recessive. all right? There are some gray areas that we're about to move into, all right? So other types of inheritance, all right? So this is the beginning. Incomplete dominance, all right? That's when one allele is not completely dominant over another. And so we're about to talk about red versus white flowers. And if it was completely just dominant or recessive, the flowers could only be red or white. But what incomplete dominance tells us is that when a red flowering plant and a white flowering plant are bred together, you don't get just red or white. You actually get pink, right? So the red and white combine to make pink, right? It's no longer red or white, and that's incomplete dominance, right? And so 4 o'clock flowers is the example that we're going to get to. So this is exactly what I said. They show up as pink flowers. And black mice, when mated with white mice, they'll actually produce gray mice. Again, so using the mice example, if it was just dominant or recessive, you would have only black or white mice. But because they have incomplete dominance, they can show up as gray. All right, so this is just kind of a flow chart. And so on the very top, right, is the parent generation or the P generation. And this is a red and a white parents, right? And so when they get crossed, you can see that in that first generation, that F1 generation, we have heterozygous big R, little r, which is going to show up as pink. And we have some little r going to be mixed with those pinks, all right? And so using this F2 generation, you can see that on the left portion of the very bottom row, you are crossing 2 pink flowers. So big R, little r, heterozygous for the color trait for both of the parents. And if you do out that Punnett square, you will get all 4 of these results for offspring. You'll get 1 homozygous dominant for red, you'll get 1 homozygous recessive for white, and you will get 2 heterozygous and show up pink. And on the right, when you cross a pink with a white, all right, you are mixing a heterozygous and a homozygous recessive, you are going to get a 50-50 pink-white ratio, all right? As far as the 4 alleles being present in that Punnett square, there are 3 of those alleles being the recessive, small r, but the 1 dominant, big R, will still kind of trump out the little r's and make it a 50-50 offspring ratio of pink to white. All right, so moving on to one more concept, we'll have incomplete dominance, or no, sorry, codominance. All right, and this is when both alleles are expressed equally, neither is dominant. So in your heads, I want you to picture something that is multicolored, right? So first thing that comes up in my mind as far as animals go is a cow. We know that cows have black spots and white spots. They're not mixed. It's black and white, but they're at different parts of the body. And that's actually an example of codominance, right? So a roan cattle, right, both in red and white hairs. You can also think of that as just a normal like milk cow, black and white. Speckled chickens, and your blood types. Blood types get talked about a lot in genetics because it's a very interesting concept to see how it flows from parent to offspring. All right, and so these are examples. All right, so on the top left, that's your roan cow. All right, white and red hairs present there. You have the face of a horse on the bottom there. He has the white bridge of the nose from the eyes down to the nose all the way. And then he has different colored hair on the rest of his body. And then you can see this codominance on this young puppy up here, right? All right, so that's about it, right? So this is the first portion of our PowerPoint. I will be going through the rest of this, right? Moving forward, I will go through that second portion of that PowerPoint. And then once I'm done with that second portion of the PowerPoint, that is when I'm going to post the Albert I.O. for this week. And the Albert I.O. is going to be this week's graded assignment. And so because we are after April 6th, these will be considered graded, as in not counting just for extra credit, okay? All right, so thank you so much for watching. hopefully you can kind of internalize some of these things mentally. If not, just jot down a few notes. And yeah, watch this video, and then once I post the other one, then I will post the Albert I.O. And again, that might be a little harder than you're expecting, but because it is graded for submitted, not submitted, do your best, get something out of the Albert and the videos that I'm posting, and then you will receive credit for this week's assignment. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and just continue to do great work, guys, and enjoy this beautiful day. Awesome. All right. Peace.